You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your PMP certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Scrum is a lightweight framework for managing complex work by organizing activity into fixed-length iterations called sprints, typically 1 to 4 weeks long, that create predictable cadences for planning, delivery, and learning. At its heart, Scrum encourages short feedback loops, frequent inspection, and incremental delivery so teams can adapt to reality rather than chase a long, brittle plan. Use Scrum where complexity and uncertainty demand regular reevaluation of priorities and rapid, working demonstrations of progress. A sprint is a time box. Most teams use 1 or 2 week sprints in which the team delivers a cohesive increment of product that could be released if stakeholders choose. The sprint creates a protected window for focused work and a clear heartbeat for planning, daily coordination, review with stakeholders, and a team retrospective. The purpose of the sprint is to convert selected backlog items into a potentially releasable increment while learning what to do next. The sprint's cadence reduces overhead and fosters continuous improvement. Scrum's artifacts and events combine to make work visible and inspectable. A prioritized product backlog holds everything known. A sprint backlog captures the team's short-term plan, and the increment is the result that must meet the agreed definition of done. Events, sprint planning, the daily scrum, the sprint review, and the retrospective structure collaboration, so inspection and adaptation happen frequently and with purpose. Together, these elements create a tight feedback loop from idea to validated increment. Product owner is the role accountable for maximizing product value and ordering the product backlog. This person clarifies requirements, sets priorities, and represents stakeholder interests. The product owner decides what the team will build next by grooming and ordering backlog items and by defining acceptance criteria so work is testable. While they consult broadly, the product owner is the single voice of the deliverables priorities and must be available to the team to answer questions quickly so the team can move without delay. Scrum Master is the role that serves the team as a coach and process guardian. The Scrum Master helps remove impediments, protects the sprint from disruptive scope changes, and fosters continuous improvement. Rather than directing technical work, the Scrum Master facilitates ceremonies, teaches Scrum practices, and works with the organization to clear organizational impediments. Their accountability is to the team's process health and to enabling the product owner and developers to focus on delivering value. Developers are the people on the Scrum team who do the work of building the increment. Designers, engineers, testers, analysts, and they jointly own how the work gets done. Developers negotiate and commit to the sprint goal, self-organize to deliver the selected backlog items, and include necessary quality work inside their plan. In Scrum, the term developers simply names those doing the delivery. It does not imply a single specialty and expects cross-functional collaboration to complete a slice of value. In hybrid projects, the traditional project manager's role shifts to enable governance without stealing accountabilities. The PM coordinates cross-team dependencies, reports to governance bodies, and helps translate organizational baselines into sprint-relevant information. The PM should not replace the product owner's prioritization or the Scrum Master's facilitation. Instead, they clear external impediments, ensure contractual and compliance needs are represented, and keep higher-level stakeholders informed in decision-ready terms. Sprint planning defines what the team will deliver this sprint and how they will do it. Inputs include the ordered product backlog, the team's capacity, and last sprint's throughput. The outcome is a sprint goal, a set of selected backlog items, and an initial plan for achieving the goal. Keep the sprint goal concise, a single sentence that orients the team, and use capacity and past throughput to avoid overcommitment. Planning time boxes are proportional to sprint length so the team spends only the time needed to plan effectively. The daily Scrum is a 15-minute time-boxed event for developers to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the plan for the next 24 hours. It is not a status meeting for stakeholders. In plain terms, the daily Scrum answers, where are we relative to the goal, What will I do next to move us forward, and what obstacles block progress? Keep it short, focused on the goal, and oriented to coordination. Escalate impediments outside the event rather than letting the meeting be consumed by problem-solving. The sprint review is a stakeholder-facing inspection of the increment, where the team demonstrates working functionality, gathers feedback, and jointly adapts the product backlog based on evidence. Treat the review as a collaborative session to validate assumptions and reprioritize work, not as a status presentation. The goal is to surface what was learned from the increment, confirm or challenge value hypotheses, and update the roadmap or backlog with stakeholder inputs for subsequent planning. The retrospective is the team's dedicated time to inspect how they worked and to define one or two small, testable improvements to try next sprint. Psychological safety is essential. Teams must be able to discuss problems without blame, so experiments can target real impediments. Each retrospective should end with clear owners and due dates for the chosen improvement, so the experiment's impact can be verified in the following sprint. The product backlog is the ordered, emergent list of product needs expressed as backlog items with clear acceptance criteria. It is a living artifact that evolves as the team learns. Prioritization favors items that deliver the most value and reduce the most uncertainty. Acceptance criteria make items testable, so both the team and the product owner share an understanding of done for each item. Keep the backlog groomed so planning is efficient and the top of the backlog is ready for selection. The sprint backlog is the team's plan for the sprint, selected backlog items, the sprint goal, and visible tasks or forecasts that show how the team expects to achieve the goal. Treat it as a commitment to the sprint goal, not a rigid contract. The sprint backlog changes only by the developers' decision as they refine the plan to meet the goal. Visualizing the sprint backlog with clear workflow states and WIP limits helps the team spot blockers and adjust flow. The increment is the potentially releasable sum of completed backlog items that meets the definition of done. It must be in a usable state and include all integrated work required for release. Each increment should be demonstrable at the sprint review and include evidence tests run, documentation updated, and any deployment artifacts to show it meets organizational and regulatory needs. The increment is the tangible output that stakeholders evaluate for value. Working agreements and a definition of ready are useful guardrails. Working agreements describe how the team collaborates day to day, while a definition of ready specifies conditions an item must meet before the team pulls it into a sprint. These artifacts reduce start-of-sprint ambiguity and prevent the team from accepting poorly understood work that invites rework. Make these agreements visible and revisit them periodically to keep them aligned with evolving practices. Definition of done, DoD, is the shared quality bar that every increment must meet. Define it explicitly to include functional tests, non-functional requirements, compliance checks, and documentation necessary for a true release. The DoD prevents hidden work from slipping outside the sprint and ensures partial credit does not masquerade as delivery. As the team matures, evolve the DoD to raise quality expectations responsibly and record why new criteria were added. DoD prevents partial credit by making acceptance objective. An item that does not meet the DoD is not increment complete and must be carried forward or remediated before being called done. Evidence supporting DoD typically includes automated and manual test results, code reviews, integration checks, and a demo confirming behavior. Use the DoD as a contract with stakeholders so done has a consistent, verifiable meaning across releases. DoD should evolve as quality expectations rise. Capture traceable evidence for each criterion so auditors and future teams can verify compliance and maintenance needs. When new regulatory or organizational requirements appear, update the DoD and use a short governance path to communicate the change to stakeholders. Treat DoD changes as part of continuous improvement. They reflect learning about risk, maintainability, and user expectations rather than arbitrary rules. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Scrum is a lightweight framework for complex work that organizes effort into fixed-length iterations called sprints, usually 1 to 4 weeks, creating a reliable cadence for planning, delivery, feedback, and improvement. Use Scrum where uncertainty or complexity makes long plans brittle. Short sprints let teams try, learn, and adapt with real increments rather than guesses. The framework's value is its rhythm, regular planning, a daily check-in, stakeholder-facing reviews, and team retrospectives, all aimed at turning uncertainty into evidence and decisions. A sprint is a time-boxed period, commonly 1 or 2 weeks, in which the team commits to delivering a cohesive increment that could be released if stakeholders choose. The sprint creates a protected window for focused work and a shared heartbeat for planning, coordination, and learning. The sprint goal, a single sentence describing the value the team intends to produce, orients daily choices and makes trade-offs easier. When conflict appears, the goal helps the team decide what to keep and what to defer. Scrum's artifacts make work visible and inspectable. The product backlog is the ordered queue of work the product needs. The sprint backlog is the team's short-term plan for achieving the sprint goal, and the increment is the potentially releasable output that meets the team's definition of done. These artifacts, combined with events, create continuous inspection and adaptation so the team and stakeholders converge on valuable outcomes rather than debating abstract plans. Product owner is the role accountable for maximizing product value and ordering the product backlog. The product owner clarifies requirements, sets priorities, and represents stakeholder interests. They define acceptance criteria so backlog items are testable. The product owner must be available to the team to answer questions and make trade-offs quickly. Their decisions about what to build next are central. When the product owner is unavailable, teams stall because priority and scope remain ambiguous. Scrum Master is the role that serves the team as a coach and process guardian. The Scrum Master facilitates events, removes impediments, protects the sprint from disruptive scope changes, and helps the organization remove systemic obstacles. They do not direct technical work. They enable the team to improve its practices and sustain cadence. A skilled Scrum Master also helps stakeholders understand how to interact with the team productively and supports the product owner in backlog stewardship. Developers are the people on the Scrum team who build the increment. Designers, engineers, testers, and analysts who collaborate to deliver value. Developers jointly own the how backlog items are implemented, how quality is ensured, and how the sprint goal is met. Cross-functional skills are vital, so the team can deliver a vertical slice of value without depending on outside groups for essential tasks during the sprint. In hybrid projects, a traditional project manager shifts toward enabling governance without stealing accountabilities, coordinate cross-team dependencies, translate program-level baselines into sprint-relevant context, and remove external impediments. The PM should not replace the product owner's prioritization or the Scrum Master's facilitation. Instead, they ensure compliance, contractual, and organizational needs are respected while preserving the team's autonomy to deliver. Sprint planning is the event where the team decides what it will deliver in the sprint and how it will accomplish that work. Inputs include the ordered product backlog, the team's capacity, and recent throughput. The outputs are a concise sprint goal, the set of selected backlog items, and an initial plan. Keep the sprint goal short and actionable. It should guide daily decisions and clarify why the sprint exists. The Daily Scrum is a 15-minute, time-boxed event for developers to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the plan for the next 24 hours. It is a coordination and planning forum, not a status report for managers. In practice, the Daily Scrum answers where we are relative to the goal, what we will do next, and what's blocking progress. Any detailed problem-solving happens after the meeting with the relevant people. The sprint review is the stakeholder-facing inspection of the increment, where the team demonstrates working functionality, solicits feedback, and adapts the product backlog based on evidence. Treated as a collaborative validation confirming or challenging value hypotheses rather than a one-way status update. The review informs subsequent prioritization and provides a concrete basis for release decisions or roadmap adjustments. The retrospective is the team's protected time to inspect how they worked and to define one or two small experiments to improve next sprint. Psychological safety is essential for honest learning. The team must be able to identify problems without fear of blame. Each retrospective should conclude with clear owners and measurable outcomes for the chosen improvements so the team can verify impact in the next sprint. The product backlog is the emergent, ordered list of product needs, expressed as backlog items with acceptance criteria. It evolves as the team learns. Prioritization favors items that deliver value and reduce uncertainty. Acceptance criteria make items testable so both the team and the product owner share a common understanding of done. Keep the backlog groomed so planning sessions are efficient and the top items are ready for selection. The sprint backlog is the team's plan for the current sprint. The selected backlog items, the sprint goal, and visible tasks or forecasts showing how the team expects to meet the goal. Treat it as a living plan the developers refine as they learn. It is a commitment to the goal rather than a rigid microschedule. Visualizing the sprint backlog with clear workflow states and sensible WIP limits helps the team detect blockers early. The increment is the potentially releasable sum of completed backlog items that meets the definition of done. Each increment must be demonstrable at the sprint review and include the integration and evidence, tests passed, documentation updated, required for release. The increment is the tangible output stakeholders evaluate to decide what to prioritize next, and repeated increments build trust through visible progress. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Sprint Planning Deep Dive. Inputs are the ordered product backlog, the team's available capacity, and recent throughput data. The output is a sprint goal, selected items, and an initial plan. Good planning uses capacity and past performance to avoid overcommitment and explicitly notes constraints that could affect delivery. Anti-patterns include overcommitting work beyond capacity, ignoring external dependencies, and creating a vague or non-actionable sprint goal that provides no guidance when trade-offs are needed. The sprint review is where demonstration meets decision-grade feedback. Show the increment, collect stakeholder reactions, and adjust the product backlog based on evidence. Use the review to validate benefit hypotheses and refine the roadmap. Avoid turning demonstrations into long slide decks. Let working software or tangible artifacts drive the discussion. Keep stakeholders engaged by asking specific questions and inviting explicit prioritization based on what they just saw. After the review, update the roadmap and backlog to reflect changed priorities and learned facts. If an increment challenges an assumption, surface that learning into the backlog as new items or revised priorities. The review is the engine that converts demonstrated learning into prioritized backlog work so the next sprint starts with clearer focus. Keep decisions traceable so the team and stakeholders can see why choices were made. The retrospective is where improvement is planned and verified. Inspect people, tools, and policies. Pick one or two small, testable experiments. Assign owners and deadlines, and verify effects next sprint. Psychological safety is the foundation. Teams must be able to discuss problems candidly without fear. Frame improvements as experiments with measurable outcomes so you can learn quickly whether a change helped. When designing retrospectives, aim for concrete experiments that fit within one sprint. Change a workflow step, adjust a WIP limit, or adopt a small automation. Assign an owner and a specific due date, and capture a visible measure to evaluate success. At the next retrospective, verify whether the experiment moved the chosen metric and either adopt, tune, or abandon the change. This rapid cycle of small experiments drives cumulative improvement. Protecting the definition of done is critical during execution. Defend it against mid-sprint scope creep, and ensure any change to DoD is a team decision with clear rationale. If new compliance or quality requirements appear mid-sprint, negotiate scope trade-offs via the product owner. Do not silently erode the DoD. Keeping the DoD intact preserves the credibility of the increment, and prevents hidden work from accumulating outside sprint boundaries. In the sprint review and retrospectives, document decisions and improvements in the team's repository so history is discoverable. These records make audits easier and help new team members understand prior trade-offs. Log decisions succinctly: what changed, why, who agreed, and what follow-up action was assigned. This habit reduces repeated debates and accelerates onboarding. Scenario: the sprint goal is unclear, and mid-sprint scope churn threatens delivery. Best next action: immediately reaffirm the sprint goal with the product owner, renegotiate scope if necessary, and protect the definition of done. Log the decision so everyone acts from the same instruction. Practical steps include a focused working session with the product owner and developers to decide which items to defer and which must be finished. Then communicate the revised plan to stakeholders. When scope churn appears, avoid knee-jerk additions or reassignments. Instead, use the sprint goal as the decision filter. If the product owner insists on new work, weigh its value against the goal and either accept the delay via a formal trade-off, move lower-value items out, or plan the new work for the next sprint. Protecting the DoD ensures delivered value remains credible and maintainable. Common pitfalls include treating story points or velocity as firm contracts, skipping retrospectives, and allowing hidden work outside the definition of done. Points are relative measures for planning, not promises. Velocity is a trend, not a hard guarantee. Skipping retrospectives halts improvement, and hidden work erodes quality and trust. Avoid these by treating metrics as inputs to conversation and by preserving the team's core rituals. A short playbook: clarify the sprint goal early, plan to capacity using past throughput, keep the daily scrum focused on the goal, demonstrate increments for stakeholder feedback, run retrospectives with small, testable experiments, and protect the definition of done. Document decisions and evidence so the team and stakeholders move forward from the same facts. Scrum is not a ritual set, but a practical system for turning complexity into regular learning and reliable delivery. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.